Hello and welcome. We are the Great Order and No White Guilt. And this is the After Party. To watch the show and to watch any of my content in Europe, please change your location on YouTube to the United States. And if it still does not work, please use a VPN. If you see anybody discussing this matter in chats elsewhere, or message boards, please advise them to do the same so that we can circumvent the anti-white efforts to prevent you all from gaining in strength and spirit and knowledge and resist this anti-whiteism, oppressive tyranny under which we are all suffering. Appearing on the honors roll call today is Mr. Cole, Stephen, Scotty, and Starshine Girl. You all are heroes that keep the engine of white well-being humming along with the fuel that all endeavors require. I thank you. As for the Super Chat crown winner of last week, the crown goes to Roy Danton for investing a total of 57 white child victimizing preventing dollars. Felicitations and thank you, dear friend. In second place was Love is a four-letter word, investing $25. Adulations and thank you as well. Jared and I are humbly filled with gratitude for all of your investments in us and the cause of white well-being. Super chats on YouTube or on the all-new Entropy platform. The link is in the description. Or, of course, you can dig down into the video's description for the familiar alternative. Today on Tap, we're going to get tapped into health and wellness and potentially relationships. This show is dedicated to all of you, and we will be taking your questions and speaking directly to your specific concerns. I already see the stars are coming out tonight. Poseidon himself has shown up, so this is going to be an exciting stream, as all of our Tap streams are. Andre is here, Digital Poseidon, Chuck is here, and I also want to thank a very late super chat right at the very end of going free yesterday, which was Chuck Ford, super chatting $10. Thank you very much for that super chat. It came in as I was closing the stream. Thank you for that, sir. But to get started today, before we get into health and wellness, and specifically Jared and I know that you all had some questions during our last health and wellness stream about reps, sets, weights, this sort of thing. We will speak to all of those as best we can in the 2 hours we have together with you all, our dear friends in this white positive sphere and this service to white well-being. And to get it started, we're going to talk about something that if you haven't seen it, you should definitely watch right after we're done here on Tap. And that is Jared George's new video, The Last Blonde. It's a Skype skit, folks. He appears with the lovely Philosophicat, and they both do a magnificent job. This is one of Jared's creations. A big round of applause in the emojis for the great Jared George putting this together and working this out with Kat. They did a marvelous job. And Jared, if we could, let's talk about that video, sir.
Well, hello, everybody. It's nice to be here. It's going to be a relaxed, conversational stream. We always try to keep our eye on the chat, but I do stress today, please do tag Jason and or I in the chat and any mods that are there with questions, because every so often we like to do something with just us here. It's been a little while. Speak to you informally. It is now the beginning of summer weather in a lot of the areas where we are, and people are feeling good. So we're doing a relaxed stream with our friends. We had leftover, as Jason indicated, enough leftover from the health and wellness stream we did. Our first one in May 4th was the health and wellness stream almost 2 months ago. So we do have some material for that to hold over, but please do feel free to ask questions, and we're just going to have a fun audience hangout today. Also, I was reacting to what you were saying, Jason, and then I realized that when it's just the two of us, our little preview on the bottom of the screen doesn't show up.
Oh,
you know, on a live stream, you usually see the panel, the different people or avatars across the bottom. Well, when it's just the two of us, it's not there. So I'm on the screen the whole time, or you're on the screen the whole time, and all of that was for naught. But that's all right.
You'll have to mime it out right now.
Yeah, I was like, I was clapping for Roy Danton, first of all. Thank you for being the crown winner. And love is a 4-letter word, but I guess the silver crown from last week. The wonderful episode when we had Survive the Jive on. That was great. Please do go check that out if you haven't already. It was great to speak with Survive the Jive, and hopefully we'll be speaking with him more. And yeah, as I was saying, this is a relaxed stream conversational. And for any of you who get the inside joke, could kind of call this a Pete's Coffee stream. Jason and I hanging out at Pete's Coffee.
Yes, indeed. Very Pete's Coffee.
Talking about life. Let us know in the chat if you get the inside joke. But, all right, so you asked me about this Skype skit, and I'm very, very excited. Thank you for your kind words on it. I will share the link in the description from my BitChute, actually, guys. Keep in mind, I put things on BitChute first. It is on my YouTube channel, the Jared George YouTube channel. You'll see me commenting as Jared George in there, and you can click on that. That's my channel. Please do sub if you haven't already. Post my whole Great Order channel getting annihilated. But this is something I've wanted to do for a long time, culture jamming. And it's something the left has been so deft at since the 1960s or thereabouts, when it really came into the fore in popular culture. Obviously, they've been the anti-white, and the anti-white's left has been plotting and building for a long time. But we do think of a lot of things breaking out and exploding in terms of popular arts and entertainment in the 1960s. And there was a lot of things, subtle and overt, to play with people's assumptions and narratives and take down sacred cows. Now, sometimes there's a place in life for the jester role, right, to take down sacred cows or to question things and make sure things don't get stale. But as we all know, as anyone who watches this show knows, the vast majority of the culture jamming that has gone on in music and television and film and all kinds of things has been to slowly chip away at wholesome, healthy, traditional modes of being, specifically in terms of what we speak about here and being people of European descent for our own people, the European peoples, the attacks on our psychology, on our sense of just having a place to stand in the world, our compass of where we stand. And so I've had it in mind for a long time to start doing stuff like that. And this is another fold, another adventure in what I want to be doing in this aspect of my life that is public when I get up here and do things, share them with you all online. So it's been a long time in the making to do something like this. And I wanted to start small. Sometimes you can really get yourself psyched out if you try to go too big. And at first, it's great to have high ambition, of course, but you have to be realistic about what you're dealing with. I looked at where I am. I looked at the resources I have, and I have some great relationships with people from what we do here, right? But all of us content creators are spread out around the country and indeed around the world. And so I want to do these kinds of skits, but what's a good premise to do this when we're all in different locations? Well, my idea was to do Skype calls. It's not a real Skype call, but it's a fictional Skype call. And it's kind of like you're a fly on the wall and you're watching 2 or more people speak on a Skype call. And it's challenging. It's challenging to do something that's entertaining and biting when it's essentially just dialogue. It's not like there's a set and a story. It's just 2 people playing characters. In this case, it was 2 people, could be more in the future, against that blue background. So you kind of know it's associated with Skype in people's minds, the Skype video call. And I have several concepts in mind, but this one, I did a couple with Kat, and this one seemed to make sense to be the first to put out. So I wrote this script, and I got Philosophicat, our good friend, to be in it with us, as she so graciously agreed, and we had a great time doing this. And the idea is to say something, and hopefully you'll be the judge, but hopefully be clever about it, make people think, but also not go for low-hanging fruit. Jason and I aren't shock jocks. We're not here to hurl out racial epithets and things like that, or go after stereotypes of people. It's really more about the hypocrisy of the regime and where things are going, and wake us people of European descent up to what's going on. And humor is a great way to do that. So this premise of this first skit, it starts out with a title that says Los Angeles 2022. And by the way, in the video, I linked to a guy named Micah Official, who did the editing for me. Someone who had, before any of this happened, he had just literally emailed me a few months ago and said, please, I want to help in any way that I can. I have some video effects and editing background. Just let me know. And I thought of him when I needed some ways to clean this up technically. So I do want to give a thanks to him. And if you do need work done, I would like to recommend him, because he's spot on, he's fast, and it's another great example of our community here for wellbeing that's we're building. And so much of it has to do with Jason's channel, this channel you're watching, No White Guilt, and Jason's presence of having talented people come out of the woodwork and volunteer to help with things like this. It's very humbling, and I am eternally grateful. But anyway, that's Micah Official helping with the editing. But to get back to the actual content, so it starts out with this title that says Los Angeles 2022. It opens up, and I had a fun playing this. I put on these big glasses, I put on a beanie, I buttoned up a shirt to the top collar, looked a little hipsterish, some kind of Los Angeles, cocaine guy who is a consultant for Kat's character. And Kat's character is an up-and-coming actress. She's not a huge A-list star. You kind of get this from the context. But she is an up-and-coming actress who's been on some TV shows and maybe done some film. And as these things go, it starts out generally, but the whole thing with the skit is you kind of want to funnel it down and turn the screw and have it get crazier and crazier until there's some kind of release or twist at the end. And I don't want to give too much away, but essentially he is consulting her about how she's perceived by the public and kind of growing her stature in the whole Hollywood ecosystem, right? So he's not a creative consultant. This isn't about her roles. It's about her as a person. And you get to see that in a few short years, in the near future, 2022, she, in fact, is the last actress in town who has blonde hair. And that's not just for a role. That is her hair all the time in real life. And it gets into some dark things about gene editing, and Kat's character stays cool. She's very down to earth. But my character just kind of flips out when she doesn't go along with the program. And of course, it kind of pokes fun at Hollywood. And, we see these actresses and actors on the cover of these tabloid magazines, this trash, when we're maybe standing in line at the supermarket, at the grocery market, and we see the things they do, the virtue signaling. And this is to poke fun at it and say, they don't come up with these things on their own. They're being told to do this. They're puppets. They're mouthpieces. I call them real-life Zoolanders. The Ben Stiller movie Zoolander was about models. But really, the reality of it, it's the actors and actresses, even the ones who seem to be quote-unquote intelligent and become UN ambassadors. They're actors. They're robots. They're being programmed. And then, so this is just a little 5 or 6 minute glimpse into that. And hopefully an entertaining glimpse into that makes people think about it. And Kat stays steadfast. Her character is just this more down-to-earth Midwestern girl. And then we see that. It's gotten tremendous positive feedback. I have like 100% engagement with it on my new YouTube channel. And a lot of people like RC, Racial Consciousness, and Poseidon, who's here tonight, immediately said to me, Jared, when are you doing more of this? This is the kind of thing we need. We want to see things like this. Jason sent me a message, seemed to be very enthusiastic about it. So I welcome any questions from the audience while we're talking about it. But that's an overview. You're definitely going to see more of it. I do have a background in some creative endeavors. This is not new to me. And it's another arrow in my quiver, right? It's another thing, another tool I want to use to wake people up, to advance our cause, to get people healthy again, and to have some fun while doing it. This is the kind of thing we need. Stereotypically, we're painted by the anti-whites as being people who are not creative, who are stuck and stodgy, and we're living in the past and we have no vision. Nothing could be further from the truth. We briefly touched on this last week with Survive the Jive. We didn't get too much into his biography. Maybe that would be for another appearance with him. But he and I have similar backgrounds in that, when he was a little younger and out of college, he was trying to break into film. He had meetings with the BBC. He tried to get his film Ruins to Ruins on the BBC. He was moving in certain circles in London with media and tech. And there was this glass wall, and it's not because the guy's not talented. Obviously, he survived the jive. Is tremendously talented, and in a bizarro world, could be in an alternative universe, could be a BBC presenter. Why wouldn't he be, right? He has the knowledge, the looks, the love of history, the ability to present, but they're never going to do that. So we now are the real counterculture. I began this whole speech about the 60s, and that was a quote unquote counterculture. Of course, some of it, at least some of it, was manufactured. We are a true counterculture, and I am beyond excited to be doing things like this. I'm taking aspects of my creative background and things that I've wanted to do, and I'm blending it into what you've already known me to do with my presence, the Great Order on my site and YouTube and everything I do. And we're going to have fun. I'm not the only one. I'm not the first person that's done skits. I recommend checking out Dancing Dove's skits. You know, she has done some very clever stuff, just one-woman skits on her own, sometimes playing two characters. So there's people out there doing great things, but we all want to see more of it. Poseidon played it on his stream last week. Jeff of White Art Collective is going to play it live on his Saturday night stream this week, 2 nights from now. So yeah, that's it. I'm excited, and I'm grateful to be given the opportunity to talk about it a little here.
Well, it's really a fantastic video, ladies and gentlemen. If you haven't seen it, you're going to laugh yourself silly. It is extremely hilarious. And Jared does such a good job as this character. You're going to wonder if Jared George is the alter ego of this coke-using, anti-white. What was the character again to Kat? A sort of a consultant to her public-facing appearance. And it is the kind of things that take place. I won't say the connections I have I do have a few links to people who are in and around Hollywood and in movie production. And this is as anti-white as it is in the real world. Of course, we see the fruits. You don't need to see the roots of the tree if you know what the fruits are. And that is part of the problem with people like conservatives and civnats in general. They don't believe a thing unless they can see for themselves the actual conspiracy, the actual rubbing of hands. But in fact, they're never going to let you see that. And in law, in fact, we see that in many cases where there is the appearance of a law being broken or the appearance of some unfair scenario, that it is immediately concluded that it is or has taken place. And so steps are supposed to be taken in those cases to, I guess, ameliorate the issue that's under consideration. Usually has something to do with whether or not for example, like a judge is a participant in an organization. I think we saw this with Trump, where we had a judge who is a participant in these groups that want open borders, and yet he's finding against Trump on an issue that has to deal with individuals coming into the country and whether or not they can enter illegally, as they are and have been entering at the tune of a few 100,000 or 100,000 a month now. Outrageous numbers, of course, folks, that are kept from us. And we just had the Supreme Court. Thank you to a woman in our community who sent me this information. We just had the Supreme Court rule that on the census, we cannot ask, or the government cannot ask, the government cannot ask whether or not you are a citizen of this country. And that, of course, is to serve this issue of preventing the population, the real Americans, the people in whom America resides, the only people who can create America and sustain America, Western kind. That is to prevent us from finding out exactly how bad it is. They don't want you to know how bad it is all the way up until the end, when there's nothing more that can be done. So that's why I've talked a lot before about perception. A lot of people say, and it's true in part and wrong in larger measure, that our people are not going to stand up and fight for our well-being and serve our well-being until they're eating out of dumpsters, until the electricity goes off at the mall and the sports ball stadiums. That's not going to happen until it's well beyond too late for us. The reality is already bad enough. The issue here is the perception of how bad it is. The perception is that it's not that bad because everything is being hidden from them. It's being hidden. It's been hidden now for a long time. It's been hidden with TV shows like The Cosbys, where you're taught one thing, where especially these many millions of whites who don't live in proximity to non-white people to any significant degree, certainly to no degree where they have numerical courage. And they're taught this is what the non-white family is. It's just like your family, but better. It's just like your family, but smarter. It's just like your family, but more educated, better dancers, more spiritual, better in all ways, just like your family, but better in all ways. And in fact, the actor playing the father, who was better than your father in all ways, was raping women every week, drugging them and raping them every week. That was the reality of the show. And we can go from show to show, actor to actor. Hollywood is absolutely, everyone knows this, absolutely surfeited with sick individuals, mentally unwell individuals. But what's most important is rabidly anti-white individuals. So if you haven't seen this skit, in fact, I won't say, there's another skit. I won't say more. This is just a hint, just a little inside of something that may be coming. There's another skit that has been in the works for over a year, and it will soon be available to you all. So that is, we're going to be doing more of these things. We are multifaceted. We are creating something that is an actual, literal, living, heart beating and breathing community of, as I say, multifaceted individuals, complex thinking individuals, feeling individuals. And with that, we will move forward in this fight for white well-being. But today, we already have, Jared, did you want to say something to that? Or no?
Well, just briefly, you mentioned having some insight into people that work in or around Hollywood. And I just wanted to say, I actually shared on my Twitter, if you go down my timeline, a few tweets, someone said this very same thing. She works behind the scenes. Let's see, this is Original Tin, a user from Instagram. I did a screen share of the comment, set dresser, but is familiar with everything that goes on in that skit that I presented in that skit. So it's obvious, like you said, with the roots and the fruits, you don't even really have to work in these industries. Like I said, I have a creative background, but I wasn't working in the middle of this. This isn't based on my work life or people I know, but you could just intuit it. You could put two and two together when you see what's going on out there, and we can all do things like this. So you don't necessarily have had to have worked in that industry to do things like this, to start taking it down, take down this facade, this glitz and glam of Hollywood and the mainstream. We see what it's produced. We can reverse engineer the kinds of people who are behind this, the kinds of meetings that go on, and we need to skewer them. I have all kinds of concepts. Some of them, this one took place in the near future. We could have ones that go on in the past, about in the early 90s, the calls at MTV about pushing gangster rap and not rock music anymore. Have fun with it. I don't care about sharing my ideas. If you take my idea, do it better than I do it. I don't care. I just want to see good stuff being done. But Jason is right. This person, who I appreciate, shared this on Instagram and I put on Twitter, in fact, works in the industry, sees the same thing. But with that, we'll continue, Jason.
Yeah, I want to mention, I see a bunch of people here. Saw Jilly Storm here. Of course, the great Poseidon is here. We have Emmanuel from the Thonic software over at Entropy, and we have that running today. Again, folks, it was running yesterday, and this is a new platform on which you can watch these live streams. You can also do things like pose questions there. And you can upvote and downvote questions. So the questions that receive the most upvotes will rise to the top. You can also super chat there, and as opposed to YouTube, super chatting here on YouTube, where they take 33%. Over on Entropy, they only take 15% of the super chat. And of course, we also have the familiar alternative for super chatting that is still down in the description. You can find it there. So you can do things like you can chat directly on Entropy. I'm looking at the dashboard right now on another computer and monitor. You can chat there. I see your chats from YouTube. You can, as I say, super chat there. I can also see your super chats that are on YouTube over on this platform as well. I mentioned the asking questions. You can participate in something called a pulse monitor over there. So you can say right now the 3 emojis are like, sleeping, and dislike. And you can participate in that depending on what's being discussed in the stream. And finally, there is a poll that you can participate. I put up a poll, and there I asked, pertinent to the conversation today, do you like lifting weights? And most people have thus far who have participated in the poll have said yes, they do. About 3/4 of the people who have participated say yes, they do like lifting weights. Now, to participate on Entropy, all you have to do is go to the link that I am going to post right now in the chat, and you will pull that up, and you will sign in, and just like a platform known as Streamlabs, your information will be pulled directly from Google. So there is no sign-up process, there is no sign-up fee, and you immediately will be on and watching the stream from that platform if you so desire. This is something new. We interviewed the team from Entropy yesterday on PWR with Mark Collette and the great Dr. Patrick Slattery, and they were a very kind and pleasant, amiable group of people. They seemed genuine. I have not dug into them any further than that. Rachel stayed with me. They set me up in 5 minutes between ending PWR and then after I got something to eat and drink and came back, 5 minutes to set me up on Entropy, and I was up and rolling yesterday. The site ran yesterday. We received super chats while I was on Going Free yesterday. Worked fine with one little hiccup, and then it came right back. But she stayed with me for the totality of almost 4 hours. That speaks a lot to the kind of people that they are. Now, of course, we're just meeting these people in the white positive sphere, and we have been bitten many times, and we have the old once bitten, twice shy. And so I mentioned to the 3 of them that our community is going to be a bit leery initially. So they understand that we have concerns about things like data mining, and we have concerns that this is just going to be another something else that we're going to get excited about and then is going to evaporate once they have X, Y, or Z from us. So they understand, they're understanding. They are there to answer your questions, and time will tell. Today, I started streaming. I did not ask them to show up and help, but Emmanuel, one of the creators of the site, he's with us today. He's in the chat. If you have any questions for him, you can tag him. First name is Emmanuel, and he will come up. So he just showed up of his own volition. Again, you can just go over to Entropy, follow that link, have a look, see what it's like. You don't like it, so be it. You can pop right back. It's not a difficult thing. Also, if you are a bit of a Luddite or a techophobe, you can jump right back and then maybe ease into it. But the setup, the dashboard is quite easy to use, and you can even modify it to your liking. And we just had a Owain super chat of $10 over on Entropy. Thank you very much for the kind super chat. Getting us started there. I will speak to Ryan Manley super chat in just a moment. And saying, apologies, the question is kind of off topic, but are you guys aware of the YouTuber Asha Logos? I really think a chat between you 3 would be really insightful. I appreciate your work. fellas. Well, thank you very much for the kind investment in white well-being. As I said yesterday, Jared and I, with every single penny that comes in, we implement it a la Silhouette. So we make it go a long way. You have no fear that any penny, any cent, any dollar that is sent to us or pound is wasted in any way, shape, or form. All of it is put to the creative work and the things we do to harden our positions so that the anti-whites can't just delete us from your lives. We will not let that happen. That's our promise to you. And of course, starting us off with the super chats today, we had the great and good friend of the show, always here, I believe he says for the past 3 years, Ryan Manley, super chatting with $2.99. Thank you kindly, Ryan. And writing, support the research. Thank you very much. We will put your money to a good cause. I see Alexis is here, Taylor is here, King is here, Serena is here, P is here, King Elvis is here. So many good people. Taylor, if I didn't miss, Andre, so great to see you all. There's Jennifer here. Zandrofen is here. Thank you so much. I don't know if you can tell by the sound of my voice, a little different than it normally is. I did recover, or at least I thought I was enough recovered from the 2 colds, back-to-back colds that I had. But the 6 hours of streaming yesterday seemed to have put a dent in my recovery. So if I sound a little bit off, or even if my voice decides to imitate a 13-year-old boy's voice and I have a little squeak here or there, you will know why. It's because there is a bit of a resurgence of whatever it is that takes place in one's head when one has a cold. But we do have a question. And if you have any questions, ladies and gentlemen, about anything, Jared and I are here to answer your questions and speak to your concerns. It can be about entropy. Remember that Emmanuel is also with us today of his own volition to participate and answer questions about entropy. It's running fine right now. We have 18 people on entropy as well. You could, if you wanted to check out both at the same time, you could go ahead and pull up entropy and run it side by side with YouTube and see how you like it from there. You do not absolutely, we're just suggesting that you have a look, you have an experiment with it. Jared, George, and I have not officially endorsed entropy or anything of that nature as of yet, which is not to say that we won't at some point, but it is to say that we are, of course, a community that's once bitten, twice shy. And I would also like to say that, especially given the fact that we know that since entropy, like in probably not too many years to come, the local grocery store serves people who care about white well-being in that they allow me to buy groceries there. They allow the great Jared George to buy groceries there. We know that entropy will eventually come under attack because they're doing business with us. They allow us on their platforms. So I want to point out that entropy is not just here for the white positive sphere. They've already been in contact with gamers. Their purpose is not just to serve those who are being censored in the white positive sphere. It's to be a platform for everyone whose tongues are being cut out of their mouths by those who would prevent speech, because those individuals who are speaking are just simply, in almost every single case, those individuals are, as we talked about yesterday, they're heretics. They are not anti-white enough. And if you all remember that, I hope if some of you used that yesterday, that meme curative between the stream yesterday and today, I hope you will mention it in the chat today and tell us how it landed on the individuals you used it on. Remember, if you are getting arrested like Phil Arps and going to jail for 2 years, our hearts are with him. Our hearts are with his wife and children. If you are being brought down at work or at school before that anti-white tribunal, they are not protecting the poor, innocent, persecuted, long-suffering non-whites from some infraction of yours. No, you have been brought down because you are guilty of heresy, because you are not anti-white enough. Remember this, ladies and gentlemen. It's extremely powerful. Use this in your conversations. So we will take all kinds of questions today, but principally, we want to go back over the health and fitness, some of the points that we made before, and we had a lot of questions about specifically lifting weights, how many reps, how many sets, what kind of things should you be doing to be in shape. Many of you were very surprised at the fact that I go to the gym once a week and I stay in shape by doing that. And I'm not there for 7 hours. I'm just there between 1 and 2 hours, 2 hours tops. And so we can talk about that. We can talk about how you can get in shape, because Jared, George, and I want you all to be in the best physical health that you can possibly be, so that you can be in the best mental and spiritual health as well. I know we already have some questions about the Democrat debate last night, and any of you who have specifics about topics that were addressed during that debate that you would like Jared, George, and I to wax brilliantly on, please present those topics in your.
It would have to be some brilliant BSing, because I'll admit to everyone right now, I did not watch it.
Well, that's why they're going to, excuse me. That is
12-year-old Jason's back.
right. 12-year-old Jason has returned. That's actually a very manly voice at 12 years old. But anyhow, yes, I know there was open borders was mentioned in the chat today, and that everyone in the Democratic panel, and I'm sure in the next lineup of the Democrats who will be debating, they want just open borders. They want an end to the United States. So we need to learn to talk about these things in a way that frames the anti-whites, in this case, the specific type of anti-white as a Democrat, that frames them in a premise that serves white well-being. Does that make sense, everyone? So we know also that, with the exception of Gabbard, they all want war in the Middle East, and we see a ramping up of war in the Middle East. I want you all to heed right now that what I'm about to say, and that is, there will be more provocations. There will be more drones that will fly over Iranian airspace. I'm not a big proponent of Iran. I want Iranians to live in Iran and be happy in Iran, and have wonderful little families and children that run in their yards and make blissful memories in Iran. That's what I want for Iran. What I also don't want is the United States, Western civilization, white people going to die for a cause that doesn't serve white well-being. And destroying Iran does not serve white well-being. So when they tell you that now remember, we can't say, there's a very strict line with YouTube now on conspiracy theories. So we technically can't say, or someone on YouTube is not allowed to say, that the drone that was shot down was over Iranian airspace, and that it was high enough in its altitude that it could be vectored into international waters. You're not allowed to say that on YouTube. So we are certainly not going to say that here on my channel.
We're definitely not saying that.
We are absolutely not going to say that, because you're not allowed to say something like that on YouTube. But rest assured that there are going to be more provocations, just as there have been provocations of countries in fictional books, perhaps, that you read, that maybe take some of the names of real places on planet Earth, and you see one country provoke another, and they use that as a casus belli. Perhaps there are many provocations. They use it as a casus belli to then go to war and achieve the objective that was set out from the very beginning. Be aware of that, and have that on the tip of your tongue if you get into a conversation, and always speak from a position of love for our people, love for Western kind, love for our white children. Do not have these conversations. People, please do not have these conversations in the old style, the superannuated style, the wizened style, the desiccated style that loses all the time. Don't tell your audience, don't tell your interlocutor how bad this group is, how awful that group is. Talk about how it harms our weakest members. Talk about how our men and women are going to be maimed in the process of something that is not going to do us any good at all. How they're not going to be able to have the children that they would have had. And again, you're going to have these anti-whites in the Democrat Party that are going to come forward and say, well, we were telling the white population for decades not to have children because it was going to destroy the earth, and we've killed off so many of them in war. Now we don't have enough people, So now we've got to bring them in from the third world because they're poor, because they're suffering. Ladies and gentlemen, there are billions of people on planet Earth that are poor and suffering. If you use that logic, there isn't a single person that can be kept out of the West. And that tsunami of non-white flesh will put a rapid end to the security, to the absence of rape that your family is now experiencing, to the absence of maiming, to the absence of having to eat your dog or your cat so that you don't starve to death. These kind of things take place. These kind of things are realizable. They are achievable, and they're happening now in places like South Africa, in places like Rhodesia, in places like, once upon a time, St. Domingo, known as the jewel of the Caribbean, Detroit, formerly known as the Paris of the Midwest. These sorts of places were nirvanas that we had built. And then we allowed ourselves to be corrupted with anti-white ideas, and they became not imaginary hells, not a cauldron in which you boil and a pointy-headed creature stirs you around. No, these were real living hells that our people ended up living in because we allowed not only ourselves, but we allowed our family and our friends to hold these irrational, illogical, dangerous, and insidious ideas that could only lead to a single conclusion. Speak up. We have gone beyond the line of being quiet, of being polite. I know for many of our people, especially like the very respectable types in different parts of the US, the genteel types as they can be, certainly the same in the UK, they see a lot of these conversations as indelicate and they don't want to broach them. Too damn bad. You can broach all of these subjects in a mature and respectable way. And if the person you're speaking with has a problem, it's their problem. It's not yours. You are in the right. They are in the wrong. You cannot allow them, and you will cuss yourself to your grave if you allow them to create a world that inflicts harm on your babies and the people you care about. Let me ask you this, and then we'll get into the health and fitness aspect of this. I think probably maybe first off, we'll have Jared summarize briefly what he had mentioned before in the first stream so that we can bring you all up to speed. And I'll just say this. At some point in your life, if you're lucky enough, you're going to be in your deathbed. You're going to be lying on your deathbed. And you're going to remember all of these moments in your life, of these conversations you had where you were a coward, where you were a craven, where you didn't speak up for white well-being, where you didn't say the real and right and truthful thing to say simply because you were scared. How much of that is going to matter as you lie there in the final moments of your life? How much are you going to wish that you would have spoke up and said something? How much are you going to regret saying something if along with those memories, as you lie in that bed, you recall the memory of your dead son, murdered by some of these animals? How much worse is it going to be if, as you lie there in the final moments, your daughter, who has never lived a day of her life the same after she was raped by one of these animals because you didn't speak out? Speak out today. Do what's right for white well-being. So now let's have Jared. I'll take a look at some of the questions. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, if you write questions to us in the chat, whether it's the chat on YouTube or the chat, I see we have a question actually, and there goes the 12-year-old Jason again. We have a question from Jonas over on Entropy, and I'll get to that because he's asking me what I think about a specific link that he's posted. I'll have a look. If you ask questions there or you ask questions here on YouTube, we will see them and we will get to them as best we can. If you tag us, you will up the chances that we will see. So that's simply, if you've never done it before, that's simply the @ symbol and then No White Guilt or Jared George. It will immediately pop up and then you can write your question. And if you want to get your question or comment absolutely certainly read and spoken to, you can super chat. You can super chat here on YouTube. You can super chat on Entropy, and you can super chat on the Familiar Alternative. Entropy and the Familiar Alternative links you can find down in the description. So I will pass it over to Jared to summarize some of the very important things that we should all be doing for our health and wellness. Jared.
So I'm summarizing what I spoke about on our last May 4th health episode. Is that what you're asking me to do?
Yes, sir.
All right. All right. Well, fortunately, I have some notes here. By the way, everybody, what do you think of the plants in the background? Because that's where they stay, and then I take them off before we do the shows because I didn't know if it was distracting. But today, I kept the plants, and I'm like, well, maybe it's green fertility god kind of thing. Maybe I should be surrounded by more plants. That's where they usually stay, but I would take them off. I thought maybe they were distracting for the stream. So a bit of a more shallow housekeeping kind of thing, but let me know if you like the plants there. On our last episode, well, obviously I encourage you to go back and listen to it in its entirety. One of the annoying things about my old channel being banned, of course, is I realized all of my comments that I made as that channel are now gone, memory hold. So you'll see conversations with a ghost. If you go to some of the old TAP episodes on Jason's channel, you'll see people commenting on something that I had said, or I was speaking to people, but I'm not there anymore. I'm just gone. I'm just the Great Order. YouTube channel is depersoned. But I was speaking to some people in those comments from that May 4th episode of the After Party. So please do go back and listen to that whole thing if you haven't already. But I essentially just spoke about a morning routine that was heavy on breathing exercises and stretching. The first thing I do when I get up, because you have to tone yourself. You have to condition yourself. You're not going to feel the exact same way every day, every time that you wake up. It might be because of things going on in your life or something that you ate 2 days ago, or if you're affected by humidity more than other people and you wake up and it's a rainy day, maybe you're a little more tired than normal. You need to have something that you focus on, that is a routine that wakes up your body, your whole being, mind, body, and spirit. So I'm not going to rehash all of the details now, but I'm very big on deep breathing and a specific breathing protocol exercises that I got from someone who has a whole program on it, and you can refer to that episode, the one that in question. And then I also spoke about the body, trying to speak as simply as possible, that the human body is a series of tubes, from very small tubes, like the smallest of blood vessels, to the larger veins, and then, of course, your intestinal tract, the whole digestive tract is a system of tubes. And you want to make sure that as best you can, you're not leaving sludge and toxins in it. So you want to be eating in a way, no food is perfect, okay? You can go down the rabbit hole with nutrition, and I spoke about this on that episode. Every food has some study on it, some bit of its chemistry that can be taken out and observed and shown to have some kind of potential negative side effect in the body. And you can even get philosophical about that and say, well, maybe nothing is designed to be perfect because we're not supposed to be in a sustained, perfect equilibrium. Nothing in the universe stays the same. Nothing's in a sustained equilibrium. Maybe that's what the transcendent aspect of life is, what we call heaven or the afterlife. But here you are going to grow, you're going to peak, you're going to decay. You cannot get away from that. So we're not trying to escape that. What we're trying to do is optimize the time that we've been given here and live it the best way we can, have the most focus, have the most energy, be as alive and conscious as we can be. And the choices you make about what you ingest, and of course we can speak about this and we can take questions about this in terms of not only food, but something we speak about often on this show, your intellectual or spiritual ingestion. What are you reading? What are you looking at on the media that you consume? But since we were speaking about food, I was talking about there's a lot of different theories, and I'm not going to get up here and be a proponent of one specific kind of diet. I I don't think that from my level of study that makes sense. And I'm not sure that it would ever make sense, because I'm not convinced, as of me speaking to you right here now today, I'm not convinced that there's one way for everyone, one diet for everyone. I'm interested in coming back to balance and harmony. And if this middle point where my hands are here represent balance and harmony, the best that you can within the state of flux we were talking about, right? Well, if someone is over here, then they're going to have to choose this path to bring them back to that center point. If someone is over here, though, they're going to have to do other things to bring them back to that point of centering and harmony. So all of this is incumbent upon you to do your own research, but to also listen to your body. This is a give and take between study and analysis, but also being present with your body and listening to it. I can assure you that as you begin to do this, you will get more attuned to knowing what is right for you. You will, that voice within your body and that sense of what is good for you and what gives you something that's life nurturing versus something that saps energy away from you. It is a law of appreciating returns. You will get to know that better as you take each step. So please don't feel like you have to do everything at once, whether it's with diet or with exercise. Jason spoke very intelligently to this point more about exercise in our last show, when he said sometimes people want to lose weight and they say, that's it, I'm going to walk around my neighborhood 20 times, my block 20 times a night. That's my resolution for this summer, let's say. Well, if you haven't been doing that, even something as simple as walking around your block 20 times, if it's a couple of miles, whatever that turns out to be, you could be putting wear and tear on your body, you could be using subtle muscles, bones, cartilage that you're not used to in new ways, and you might put strain on it and you might hurt yourself, even if it's a smaller injury, and then that might curtail you from going on. So it's so important to start small, be easy on yourself, hold yourself to high standards. We're all about that on this show, but we have to get out of this, especially mainstream American way of wanting everything now and not having patience. All of this, it takes time. You can't, in terms of changing your body, you can't think in terms of a few weeks or even a few months. You have to think in terms of years. And yes, you do want to see results and break it down. But essentially, to get back to what I was saying, your body is a system of tubes. You want to keep it clean, so you don't want to eat things that leave crap in your body. What does that mean? Well, sugars break down your body. Simple sugars break down your body. Anything with preservatives, anything with chemicals in it. This should be common sense. As I was starting to say a few moments ago, I don't get up here and say, we should all be this one way. Everyone should be vegan, or everyone should just be eating meat. I'm not going to say that there's one size fits all. But what I am going to say is your rule of thumb should be eat close to the earth. So if you're going to eat meat, and I do eat meat, I eat meat every day. I love it. I eat meat that is largely organic. It is at least hormone-free. It's not from big factory farms. There's a lot of reasons for that. I'm very selective with my choice of meat and eggs. My butter is grass-fed and all that. So you're getting the nutrients, but you're also not getting all of the crap that comes with it, the hormones, the antibiotics, all of the things, even the stresses of the animal. When you're in a state of stress, your body's releasing certain chemistry. What do you think the cattle or the pigs are feeling when they're hearing the screams of those in line before them at these horrible factory farms? So those are all things to keep in mind. You want to eat, I don't really eat much of anything that's packaged. Anything that you can keep out for a while, unless, of course, you have to think intelligently about this. You might have a green powder that's been dried or something like that, and it's freeze-locked the nutrients when it was just picked. That's not what I'm talking about. I do take some green powders, put them in water. I don't take a vitamin, but that's my quote-unquote vitamin, because as good as you can eat today, even if you eat organic, unfortunately, our soil is depleted. You're going to be breathing in toxins from cars and just pollution to different degrees, depending on how urban an environment you're in. You can't get away from the fact that your body is accumulating toxins. So you want to minimize that through the food you eat by, again, eat close to the earth. You eat things that if you leave them out, they're going to decay, unless it's something that's been dried in the right kind of process. Simple ingredients, natural ingredients. It costs more money, but I eat almost exclusively organic. Your wallet, your budget reflects your values. I don't spend money on cake and cookies and ice cream. I certainly don't spend money on frivolities. I don't go out to bars. I don't drink alcohol. So all of that money that people use on that, or if you get sick one day, even if you have insurance in the United States, it still might be very costly. All of this is my insurance against that. And then in terms of the cleansing, you also want to do things where no matter how good you're eating, you give your body time to do a deep cleanse and get rid of those toxins that we're talking about. And that would largely come in the form of fasting. I spoke about apple cider vinegar in water, mixing with ginger or lemon. You can do all sorts of things, even if it's a half-day fast at first. Again, start small, start realistically. I've fasted for many days. Not recently. It's not why I'm so thin. I just have a very fast metabolism. But I have used fasting in the past. I can assure you that there's definitely a mental and spiritual element to it as well. It is a whole body kind of a thing. And it really does test your discipline. It's a great thing, but it's very different than if you're running around all day and you're very busy and you happen to just not be able to eat. And then you might feel like you're about to collapse. That is not how you feel when you're fasting. When you're fasting and there's the mental preparation of saying, I'm going to fast today, you know what you're getting into and you have a plan. And obviously you should do it on a day off when you're at home. You don't want to be at work or out. It's still challenging. You have to get used to it. But you kind of get to a point where you get very calm. You get past the hunger pangs. You kind of coast. There's a plateau of it. It is not at all the same thing as, again, when you're out rushing around and you just happen to not have eaten all day, and then you feel like you're going to collapse or you're in a terrible mood or something because your blood sugar is crashing. It's very different than that. I do recommend everyone, do research on this. Again, Jason and I, we are not licensed healthcare professionals. We are simply two guys sharing what works for us. So I spoke about fasting. There's other ways to cleanse, even going to massage. There's colon cleanse therapy. All kinds of things that get your body to naturally release toxins and go into that state where they're just like sleeping and waking, or just like exhaling and inhaling. You should give your body cycles where you're building up and you're eating nutritious food and all of that. And this is going to tie into bodybuilding, which Jason is going to speak to in a moment, but also periods where you let your body not be putting that tremendous amount of energy that goes into digestion. After a certain amount of hours when you're fasting, your body then turns to all that stuff it was never able to get to, all that other stuff on its desk it was never able to get to, things going on in your body that need to be addressed, cleansing out certain toxins that have built up over years in the organs and the blood vessels, and you will feel better. And if you keep cycling through and doing more of this over a couple of years, you will become a different person. So again, there's more details in that first episode on May 4th, but those are some of the big points, if I remember correctly, that I spoke about on that episode.
Yeah, that was great, Jared. I think that brings folks really up to speed. I will echo a lot of the things there that I spoke to in that first health and wellness stream. And that is, folks, you have to start small, as Jared is saying. You want to take it easy. I cannot tell you the number of people I have spoken to. In fact, it's been virtually every case that I have advised people to start small. They said, we'll do whatever we want. And then all of these parts of their body that are not used to these workouts, as I said, it's not just your muscles that grow in size, strength, girth, etc., but it's the ligaments, it's the tendons, it is the bones that also get larger. You go out and you start these training procedures, and the quickest of all of that is the muscle. The muscle can respond rapidly relative to the others. What ends up happening is the muscle leaves everything else in the dust, and you subject then ligaments, tendons, bones to greater pressures than they are able to handle. A great example of that was when I was a very young man and I was being misled by people who didn't know the optimal route to health and wellness. You know, it's the typical, you buy like the Schwarzenegger book or the fitness magazine, and they have a lot of crazy sounding things, and so they must be right, because this is the credo qui absurdum I talk about, of Tertullian's line that I've turned into the reality of the human mind, at least when it comes to white people. We seem to suffer from this idea that if something sounds utterly absurd, then it must be true. And that follows us with everything. It follows us with working out, with health and fitness. We hear about these ideas like this, the diet where all you do is eat dandelions or something, and then suddenly you're going to be this magnificent shape. And people are out there, not dumb people, and people who would score well on IQ tests, people who have gone to good schools, people who have good education, as well as those who do poor on IQ tests, have no education. They fall for this stuff because of this glitch in the mind.
Have you ever seen the 30 bananas a day thing?
I haven't heard of that, but that sounds like a perfect example.
I mean, I haven't studied it, so again, someone in the chat may go off on me for this. You have to be an avid runner. These are people who run dozens of miles every day. But they say, oh, your body lives off burning the sugars. And these are people who literally, no, we could get our nutrition. They literally just eat 20 to 30 bananas a day and oranges and nothing else. And I have no idea how they stay alive. But that's what I meant before about, you're absolutely right, these extreme things, like you only eat this one thing. It's, maybe for a specialized type of athlete, but how does that make sense to not be getting even basic macronutrients?
Right. Yeah, it's absurd. And it's a perfect example of these ideas that seem to fit right into this glitch. The credo qui absurdum means I believe because it is absurd. This is the glitch that's in the mind for people. It's a glitch that clever marketers use all of the time on the population. It's something that, unfortunately, since we don't have a government at all for Western kind, they are usurped. They are used to our detriment. If we had a government for and by our people who was concerned with our well-being, such a government would intervene, and there isn't. So we end up having people try these exotic, idiotic. I still remember, it was odd, and I'll get back to my story about when I was younger. I still remember up in southern Maryland, just over the border from where I am in Virginia, there was a woman who was getting ready for her wedding. I just remember this being in the news. And at the time, there was this new diet pill, and you had to do nothing. You just take this pill and you're going to just shed all of this weight. Well, of course, that appealed to her. It was a perfect example of credo qui absurdum. And she took the pills and she died days before the wedding. Now, she died because these things were ultimately stimulants. They were poison to her body. It was a bunch of bizarre herbs from bizarre places on planet Earth. And in the first video of health and wellness that we spoke, I briefly spoke about this idea that clever marketers will come to you and say, this tribe in thus and such region that still runs around naked and in loincloths and can't build two-story structures and still drinks from wells that are not potable, the same wells they wash their animals in. This tribe says that this herb does these magic things. And then you have people here in the West who will believe it. Ladies and gentlemen, don't buy another thing like that. Don't waste another dollar. In the first video about this, I'm going to tell you right now, and I'm going to repeat, because we are not charging you for this information, especially since we're not charging you big money for this information, doesn't mean that what we're sharing isn't as valuable as what someone who is making a livelihood and maybe doing very well in their livelihood with very nice cars and houses will charge massive amounts to share with you bogus information You're going to get something real here because we love you. We want what is best for our people. We don't want you hyped up on some idiotic substance because you think it's going to make you healthy. And then you're wasting all of this money and it does nothing for you. So, number one, and this is the summary of really what we talked about before from what I had to say. The most important thing that you can do for your health is not take a magic pill. There is no nostrum out there. There is no nostrum. Ponce de Leon, and they looked. There is no nostrum. There is nothing that will make you juvenescent. There is no pill. There is no powder. There is no anything that is going to remedy all of your ills. A panacea is a pie in the sky. The anti-whites sell it all the time. I know it sells big, but we're going to tell you the truth. And like you'll find, I think in some of Shakespeare, I must be cruel to be kind. And that in this way, being cruel is telling you the reality that you cannot get something for nothing. I know we can say that, but then we all end up falling for it. No pill, no powder, no shake, no liquid drink is going to make you perfectly healthy. The very first thing you have to do is get rid of the poisons. Your body cannot handle the poisons. The poisons are making you sick. So the poisons come in lots of forms. They come in forms of cigarettes. They come in forms of alcohol. They come in forms of foods that are chock full of preservatives that are meant to make the investors and owners of the companies a lot more money by poisoning you just a little bit. The problem is, when it's from their point of view, they know that it's just a little bit of poison. Surely your liver and kidneys and organs, the rest of you can deal with it. The problem is that all of the companies are thinking the same thing and doing the exact same thing. And there isn't a government that cares about us to step in and put an end to it. So you go to the grocery store and you buy this little bit of poison and that little bit of poison and this little bit of poison, and you put all of that in your mouth, and then you become sick, you become diseased, you are unwell. You need to first and foremost cut out all of the poisons. That is a difficult process. Do not try, as I just said, hearkening back to what I said a moment ago, don't start with, I'm going to radically change my diet. I'm cutting everything out of it today and just cold turkey for me. I'm going to go just to bread and water or whatever it is that you're thinking. Don't do that. Take something out, even if it means taking it out, depending on you. Look in the mirror. You know what you're capable of. Don't lie to you. Don't lie to yourself. You're only hurting yourself. You know how strong or weak your constitution is. If you can cut one of the things out of your diet right away and you can keep it out, do that. If you're weak and you can't, cut it out for a day of the week. Cut one day out. Monday, you're not going to have soda. Monday, you're not going to have a candy bar. You get on the right track and you follow it like a bloodhound to a healthier you. You stick with that line and you don't vary. What matters is that you're going in the right direction. First and foremost, start getting rid of the poisons out of your diet. As I say, they take many forms, so it's going to require a little bit of education on your own. Jared and I will do more of these videos in the future, and we can speak directly to specific types of products. We can bring guests on that specialize in discussing different areas of health and wellness, specifically foods and things of this nature to stay away from. Now, having said that, there are green food products out there that can be good for you, that can be beneficial. There are things out there that can help, They're not panaceas. You're not going to wake up tomorrow morning and all of the parts of your body that you want smaller are going to be smaller, and all of the parts that you want bigger are going to be bigger, and your hair is going to be fuller, and this and that, your skin is going to be radiant. None of these things are going to do any of that for you. Reality check. This is the real world that you're getting in the cause for white well-being. But they will help. They will benefit. They will fill in some of the voids. Something important that you need to understand and appreciate is that we can start from the very beginning. You are composed of your genetics. There is a giant lie in the health and wellness industry that says that if you just eat right, if you just do our specific trances, if you just do these particular poses, if you just eat or drink our particular foods and drink, you will have optimal health. Optimal health is, and disease free and everything free is there for you no matter what. That's a lie. You are capable of doing only what your genetics say that you're capable of doing. And that might mean that you're going to have terrible vision in your life. And I'm sorry that that's the case. No good eating is going to fix that. It might mean that your liver is not going to function quite right. That's because the architecture of it is not right. No proper eating, no proper dieting is going to fix that. You have to work around it and live the best life that you can live. The next level of that, and then we'll talk about some of the actual exercises. The next level of that is that there are limits on what a vitamin or mineral can do for you. Now, some of you are going to think that that sounds, well, that's perfectly absurd. Of course, that's right. But the reality is, on every single bottle, you go to the health food store, you see in the commercials, on every single bottle you're going to read, or container bag, you're going to read, this has so much of this vitamin, so much of that vitamin, so much of this mineral. And don't you know that this mineral will make X, Y, and Z better on you? So you need that mineral. And don't you know that they're lying. They are lying. Unless you're deficient in the mineral or vitamin, more of it is not going to do anything for you. In fact, for example, in the case of vitamin A, too much vitamin A will make you go blind. Vitamin A is critical to lucid eyesight. Too much vitamin A will turn off the lights forever. So it's not true when you read on the website, where you read in the doctor manuals, when your doctor tells you, when the advertisers tell you that more of this is going to remedy all of these ails. And it's remarkable how many things that they can list and say will be improved. But it's not going to do anything unless you're deficient. If you are really concerned about whether or not you have a deficiency, you can go to your doctor, depending on your healthcare plan. Sometimes your healthcare plan will pay for it. Sometimes it's out of pocket. It's worth knowing if you're really concerned. Go and have blood tests and test for the vitamins and minerals that you think you might be deficient in, and have a look. Now, when it comes to water-soluble vitamins, that can be a little difficult because they can fluctuate kind of rapidly throughout the day, which means that you might have enough at your blood test or too little, depending on whether you're required to fast and the like. But certainly vitamins that stay in the body, for example, B12, they put endless amounts of B12 in products because the belief right now is that it won't harm you. But of course, B12 stays in your system. More importantly, a single element of B12 can be used, according to my reading years ago, 7 times. It will circulate in your body over and over and over. Only a tiny bit is needed. Now, of course, when you become a senior citizen and it becomes difficult to absorb B12, then they'll do things like offer shots of B12 and the like, or if you're suffering from this. And again, I will just echo what Jared said once more, as we did in the first stream. We are not licensed healthcare practitioners. We are telling you the advice that we have given to ourselves, private conversations that we've had, things that we have implemented, things that we have learned. We're not telling you what to do. We know very well that there are bureaucracies in this country that will permit drugs to go out onto the market that they know will harm people, that they know will cause different types of problems. It's in the literature, the warnings that come with the drugs. They know. But if anyone out there says, I think that eating spinach is good for you and you all should eat spinach, I recommend it to everyone, they will swoop right in and sue and shut you down and the like. This is a country in madness. It's in madness in many ways, and it's because it's gotten away from the creators and sustainers of the country. Now, to working out. I imagine that there are many of you who have different questions. And just really quickly, I want to say again, a big thank you to Owen for the $10 on Super Chat on over there on Thonic and Entropy website. If anybody wants to Super Chat over there, it's very easy. The link is in the stream. It's in the description. You can also, again, Super Chat by way of the familiar alternative and, of course, here on YouTube. And it looks like almost everyone in the poll that I have been running on Entropy, almost everyone says they like lifting weights. So we're going to talk about lifting weights and your specific scenarios, because everyone is different. Everybody's body has a different abilities. You're in a different place relative to working out. The first thing I want to talk about is probably the one that all of us are going to want to hear. All of us are going to want to hear. Ladies and gentlemen, there are trainers that would charge you hundreds of dollars for what I am about to say. Hundreds of dollars for what I'm about to say. And if you go to wealthy places in New York and Southern California, they will charge you thousands of dollars for what I'm about to say. And then they'll go out and they'll get in their Porsche and drive home after the day of giving you a little bit of information that I'm going to give you right now for free. When it comes to your abdomen muscles, this is your six-pack or eight-pack, as I have had, and your obliques on the sides. These muscles are similar in their makeup to your heart muscle. Believe it or not, your heart, even though it's beating for the totality of your life, actually rests more than it works. You might say, how is that? How could my heart, when it's beating for the totality of my life, be resting more than working? The way that that muscle is able to rest more than it works is that the fibers are able to recuperate more than the effort that they had just invested in between the beats. So there is more rest as a consequence between the beats than there is effort in the beat. Your abdomen muscles, more than other muscles in your body, are similar to the fibers that make up your heart. What does that mean for working out with your stomach? We all want, men and women, and so that's why this is a perfect subject to start with. And then I want to hear from you all what you all have tried as well in the past when it comes to your abs. We all want flatter stomachs, men and women. So there's no difference there among us. The way that this information can be utilized for your success is that when you're doing sit-ups, when you are exercising your abs, when you are exercising your obliques, if you rest in a repetition, you've just wasted your time. Or I guess I could say that might be a little too harsh, but it's close enough to reality. You've just seriously undermined the effort that you're making by doing your exercise when it comes to your abs and your obliques. I have an 8-pack, not because I spend hours and hours doing thousands of sit-ups. No, the way I'm able to have an 8-pack and display all of the muscle is because I know that I cannot allow those muscles to rest even for a millisecond while I am working them out. They must be under a continuous load while you're working out. So when you're doing sit-ups, let it be the old-fashioned kind you probably learned in elementary school where your knees are bent and feet are flat on the floor. Let it be something that's a little bit more sophisticated. Your knees maybe, or your feet up on a bench or a couch. All of these things, by the way, we're talking about with the abs so far can be done at home, can be done. And that's really the place where you should begin if you are not already a gym goer. Begin in the home, begin in the privacy of that space and start doing these things. Because one thing that holds a lot of people back is the fear that people are looking at you when you're in public, when you're at the gym, and thinking, my God, that idiot doesn't know what he or she is doing. So just begin at home. if you are not already at a gym, and do your sit-ups. You could do your crunches, another different form of sit-up. The difference here is that you want to never relax. When you sit up, you don't want to come all the way up. Does that make sense? If you come all the way up, those muscles in the abdomen release. Now you're wasting your time. If you go all the way down, those muscles release. Now you're wasting your time. You want to be in a place where the muscles are always working. So not all the way down, not all the way up. You want to be in this short range of motion when you're doing those sit-ups. It's going to burn because the lactic acid is building up. Your body is using the oxygen in the muscle. As the muscle tightens, more oxygen can't come in. And so you'll feel this burning sensation as a consequence. Don't fear the burning sensation. It will go away as soon as you relax. The blood will flush through there, and the sensation of fire or burning will be gone. The next day, if you feel some soreness, that's because of the acid that was built up by the exercise. Rest assured that the more you work out, the better your body will get at flushing that acid. I never feel sore because I kind of regret it. The sore sensation after a good workout is something that I remember liking, and most people talk about because they know they've done something. But my body is so good at flushing the acid that I don't feel any soreness the next day, or it's too minor to really notice. So when you're doing those sit-ups or crunches, however you're seated when doing them, you don't go all the way down, you don't go all the way up. Now, here's the next thing I want to say. Very few of you out there want big abs, especially the ladies. Can I hear from any of the ladies out there? How many of you, and the guys as well, how many of you want a big old stomach and a big thick midsection? How many people really want that? Nobody, right? Nobody wants a big gut that's sticking out, even if it's rigid with muscle, and big obliques sticking out, even if they're rigid with muscle. Haven't met a woman yet. I have met some guys that wanted to build their obliques up that way, and that was when I was playing college football, and so there was a reason for that, to protect the lower back. That's different. I can imagine the same would be true for power lifters. They would want to really build this up. So since you all don't want a giant stomach and a giant abs, I guess I see Mrs. Horse saying, not me. Iron saying, nobody wants that. Zendrofin says, not me. Okay, so I got 30-year-old boomer says, I'm aiming for a thick core. So maybe you're doing some powerlifting and you want that protection there. Ursa Major says, only when I'm pregnant. I see no thanks here. So anyhow, Morgan says, Jason's body is better than those Greek statues. It is real. I don't know about that, but it is real. My body is real, but I don't know if I'm better than what artists do. But very few of us want that. I'll speak to both right now about how to. What Poseidon says, I don't get sore much myself. I don't work out. Well said, brother. Well said. We do have a super chat, though, I'm going to read right now. And then I'm going to tell you about the midsection. And then I'm going to want, maybe, Jared, maybe we can do something like we can have people take before and after pictures. Maybe like a picture of their midsection. Not, very nothing lewd, of course, just maybe right below the belly button up to the lower rib cage. And then they can work with these reps and sets that I'm talking about here. And once they see some development, take another picture. And then maybe we could share those. But we have Real Kit super chatting $25 by way of the familiar alternative. Thank you very much for that great super chat. I'm writing, thank you for your work for our people from a fellow Virginian. Well, very good, sir. Your impassioned speech has been inspiring and encouraging, and I look to get involved IRL in part because of it. The topic is very important, and your advice is solid as always. Thanks, brother. Well, thank you very much for the kind words, for being a member of this rapidly growing community, and for the kind super chat to the cause of white well-being. We also have a question, I think it's from Venus Rising. No white, love no white guilt. Oh, it's a statement. Love no white guilt for fortitude and his lovely energy, powered rants and passion. Thank you very much for the kind words. A vampire squid asking Jared, you and I, has there been much discussion about rebranding the alt-right? It's a dead name. Maybe we'll mention that if we have any time. Pia writing, is there any plan for a debate with E. Michael Jones? If so, I have infos to press him on, and race issue on the Catholic point of view. Ignoring race as fact is not even Catholic. Well, thank you very much. If we do decide to have a discussion with that crotchety old fellow, we will perhaps reach out to you for some of your info. So, folks, here we go. If you're going to work on that midsection and you want it to be smaller, don't use weight. 0 weight. High repetitions. Not 5 pounds, not 10 pounds, not like these crazy things I've seen ladies at the gym with 25-pound plates rotating back and forth. And I walk up, I help people, I care about people. I mean, there was a time at the gym when there was an Asian girl, I don't know, maybe 19 or so, and she was bawling and sitting on a bench. She didn't appear to be injured, like she hadn't bumped into something emotional was crushing her, and people were just walking by and pretending like they didn't see her. I even went up to her and I put my arm around her and I asked if there was anything I could do. Was she okay? Had she been injured? And what she had to say was something, it was clearly that was personal, and I just suggested that this wasn't the place to be. These people walking around, even though she was in public, was going to make her feel even more alone. So I even helped her. She wasn't even having a gym problem. But I've gone up to people at the gym and I've seen them with the 25-pound plates, and they're working. They think they're working they think they're reducing their obliques. And in fact, the oblique muscles, to a little bit of a lesser degree, the abs up front, they want to get large. They want it. If you give them weight, and this is to the individual who said that he wanted to get a larger midsection, use weight, and your obliques and your abs will respond in a big way, pun intended. And the reason for that is that area of your body is meant to stabilize the lower and upper half of the body, all right? And it provides a lot of protection to the lumbar part of the spine, the sacrum and the lumbar part of the spine. So if you're lacking there, if you're lacking that, sometimes trainers will refer to this as core and things of this nature. This really is your obliques on the side, your abs in the front. If everybody knows, if I mention a muscle and you don't know what it is, speak up and I will tell you, because I don't want you missing out on what we are sharing here today. So you want to use, most of us want to use no weight. Work your obliques, no weight. High repetitions, very high. Do it until it burns so much you can't do anymore. Take a breather, do it again. You could do just this. 3 sets of that a day. 3 sets of that a day. And depending upon how much fat you have that is laying over the muscle of your body, you will see results within a week to 2 weeks. You will begin to see results. Some of your initial results and best results appear right away. If you still have quite a bit of love handle laying on top of your muscle, it's going to take a little longer. You're going to want to burn some of that, and we can talk about that in a different stream as well. But no weight, high repetition. Don't let the muscles rest. I hope that's sinking in. Now, if you want to build up your obliques, you want to build up your abs, throw the weight on there. Do the same thing. Don't let the muscle rest. Throw the weight on. Do as many reps as you can. These will blow up. These muscles will respond happily and will get as big as you want them to get. When you get into more advanced stages, we can talk about things like doing the very heavy, lower rep, higher set workouts, which will help those of you who want to go beyond that to get even bigger. I know that there are a lot of folks who want to build, or some folks who want to build that big midsection for things, because powerlifting is becoming popular, I guess, in the white positive sphere. I see a lot of photographs of young men, older men doing things like lifts like deadlift. Folks, please, and I'm going to pass it back to Jared for his thoughts on this and take a look at what you wrote. But please don't see lifts like deadlift and jerk and clean and this sort of stuff and think, especially you young guys, well, to be a guy, to be a real man, to be macho, I've got to go to the gym and start doing these sorts of things. No, you don't. You just don't. They can be good workouts if you get into it and you're working out for a while and you want to make that part of your routine. More power to you. We can talk about that in the future as well. But it's becoming like a fad now to see pictures of young guys picking up as heavy a weight as they can, and then they try to impress others by using bumper weights rather than just the regular weight. So, and by bumper weight, it's a weight that is much thicker and the same size as a normal plate, but weighs a lot less. So these are meant to be thrown. These are meant to not do as much damage to the gym when they are being thrown around. But it also gives the impression that the guy, or even the woman, some women out there who are getting into powerlifting, are lifting a lot more. And the final thing I'll say, just because I mentioned it about women, there also seems to be this bizarre new interest in ladies in powerlifting. Please understand, now, if you're doing this and you want to do it and you're enjoying it and it's really satisfying some part of your identity and your desire, don't stop. Keep doing it if it's making you happier. But I'm going to say this caveat to all ladies, whether you're powerlifting or not: your bodies mechanically are not meant to lift such loads. Your bodies are not meant to be in combat with other men, and you are much more prone to injury. If you have been a female athlete, you can speak to this. The trainer centers at high schools and at universities are absolutely surfeited with injured female athletes. And these are top-notch, in great shape female athletes. And it is simply because their bodies are not designed to do combat as are a man's body. So what does that mean? It means that the ligaments and tendons are naturally larger, the joints are naturally larger, the everything that's holding the body together to be able to engage in that physical activity is weaker in a woman. It's just a fact. It's slimmer in a woman. It's just a fact. So if you are involved in it, please be careful. You probably know what you're doing. You're probably talking to the right people if you're deeply into it. If you're a lady who is not involved in it already, you're not sure, think twice. It's going to be very easy for you to injure yourself severely if you're powerlifting. And so I'm going to take a look at the questions and see if we have any more super chats. Oh, we do. I see that love's a four-letter word. Super chatted $10 by way of the familiar alternative. Thank you very much for that. Our Silver Crown winner, Jared, from last week. And writing, I'm late, so please disregard my question if you've already discussed it. What are your thoughts on colloidal silver for antibacterial treatment? Much respect, my brother, Jen. Well, very briefly, I'm a big fan of silver, of nebulizing silver. In fact, I did not have silver on hand when I got sick. And prior to getting sick, I had successfully used nebulized silver to thwart the illnesses that were coming on, maybe more than half a dozen times over the past potentially year and a half. So without the silver to nebulize when these colds came on, they were unstoppable, and I still am feeling the ramifications, especially after the long streaming yesterday. So Jared, I will pass it over to you and anything you might want to add. We do have these other topics as well that are not health related. I don't know if you want to speak to any of them, but please, sir, whatever you have to say.
Well, I'll just briefly comment on it's tangentially related to the colloidal silver. something I'm glad that the super chatter asked it, and it didn't come up last time, but there's a lot to dysbiosis, and that is the wrong kind of balance in the bacteria in your body. A bacteria, of course, is a large category. There are bacteria that are harmful to you, and there are bacteria that are helpful to you. The whole bacteria kingdom is a fascinating thing. But all of that good food that you're eating doesn't mean nearly as much as you think it means if your body's not able to absorb it and take the nutrients and distribute it to your body, break it down into the building blocks for your hormones and enzymes and the things that nourish your blood and your organs. I spoke a little about apple cider vinegar earlier tonight when I was speaking about fasting, also on the May 4th health episode that we've been referencing. But I didn't speak much about probiotics and gut flora. Now, this is a tricky thing because going on what Jason was saying earlier, it has become a big trend, and there are a lot of products based on probiotics. So briefly, just please do your research and remember what I said before about keeping it simple and not doing anything that is too flashy, looking at the right ingredients, and just doing your research. There are things you can do to help stimulate your own body's natural production of the quote unquote good bacteria that helps to clean things up, helps to break down foods when you eat. And that is something you're going to want to look into as well. Certain types of fiber, prebiotics are good for that because, again, I think as a general rule of thumb, the first line of thinking shouldn't just be, well, I'm going to swallow something. I'm going to swallow pills or swallow this tincture. Even if it is something that is full of nutrients and is good for you, yes, we need those building blocks, but your body produces a lot of these things on its own. And your first line of thinking should often be, what do I need to do? What do I need to stop doing so that my body naturally produces these things that it should be producing anyway? When you do thought experiments and you think about the Vikings crossing the Atlantic Ocean, I mean, how much super nutritious food could they have stored on those ships? I'm not sure, but those guys, they were still pretty robust and pretty healthy and resistant to all kinds of extreme weather. So something to think about and do a little thought experiment on. Again, the world that we live in today has pollution that they didn't have to deal with. The soil is depleted in ways that it wasn't then. So I'm not anti-supplement if it's in terms of, like I said, food-based. If you're freezing plant and fruit nutrients, if you're freezing them at their peak, that could be a very good thing, those powders. If you're, again, very discerning about that, I do take them myself, but I do a lot of research. But the same thing applies to the probiotics. Dysbiosis is the imbalance. That means that there's more quote unquote bad bacteria than good. And that can be a first domino to a whole host of other things. Besides the food absorption that I talked about, besides the cleansing properties, I'll just briefly mention, and I encourage you to do your own research on this. Your whole gut biome is intimately related to your immune system. And there's a lot of crossover between your immune cells and the colonies of bacteria, good and bad, in your gut. So there's a lot to that. Please keep that heading in mind and then go research that. I'll just also briefly mention, if you're interested in this kind of thing, we had a great discussion with Blonde Buttermaker in, I believe it was early April. I have put the link in the chat a few times, but please go to Jason's channel. She speaks a lot about ancestral ways of eating of our European ancestors. And also, I'll say this again at the end, but I did put this in the chat as a little teaser. We have a different kind of tap episode on Wednesday, and it's something that you might want to do a little preparation for yourself and spread the word about. We're having a woman who has studied psychology for many decades and archetypes, who has dedicated years of her life to researching Lord of the Rings as a meta myth and something that the West desperately needs now, something that is woven into our consciousness. There's a reason why we respond to these symbols. She did an amazing video series. There's many parts to it. We are going to be focusing on the first 3 parts. I shared the link. They're embedded in her website. They're also Vimeo videos. And you don't have to be fluent in Lord of the Rings. She focuses on the films because, of course, we live in a day and age of mass media and audio-visual stimulation. but she is of the opinion that those films actually did a good job and kept the spirit of what Tolkien was saying alive and speaks to our day and our age that we're living in now. You do not have to be fluent in Lord of the Rings. Again, Jason and I are not. You may be surprised to hear this, but between the two of us, we have not even seen all of those Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings movies. And we purposely decided not to watch them before this, just so that those people in our audience who are not big Lord of the Rings junkies will understand that their hosts share their position. I don't want you to be intimidated. You do not have to be an expert of Lord of the Rings to get a lot out of this. Again, we're going to be looking at the first 3 parts, so you don't have to watch all of them. But she did a fantastic job. We'll mention this again at the end, but she's going to be on Wednesday. We're not usually on Wednesdays these days, but we're doing it Wednesday at 5 Eastern. That's a good time. A lot of Americans are going to have off the next day, it being July 4th. It's early enough in England, 10 p.m., and hopefully the continental Europe, 11 p.m. Some people can stay with us as well. We really do want to get a lot of viewership for that. And it's not the first time, it's not the last time she's going to be on. We've been doing a lot of preparation for this. There's a lot to it. So please do look at those links and share about that. I will mention it at the end. But Jason, what are those other topics that we're liable to talk about in this open chat? And again, please, to our chat, please at us or use the super chats to ask any and all questions.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, now is the time to do it. I cannot believe how quickly the time has flown by on this stream. This is it's amazing. I wish we could spend so many more hours with you all discussing all the things that we need to do to go free. And this one among many topics. I think in the future, Jared and I will also do a reasonable episode where we talk about with some professionals on prepping. That is a reasonable and honest approach to events that could take place, and a realistic expectation of what you can do to be able to weather the storm when those things take place. Of course, this is in a contradiction to these other prepping notions and prepping ideas where you're going to burrow into the hillside and you're going to live there for the next 10 years while X, Y, or Z takes place. No, we need to be able to prepare for the sorts of things that take place in Central South American countries as we become, I guess, more, as the wheels fall off the country, as we have more equality hires, making sure that the power is on or that the water works. We're going to have things in society that break down, and it's going to take longer to fix them. We want you all to be in the best shape to be able to weather those outages. And so a proper prepping episode is to come in the near future. Don't look for something where we're going to talk about building bunkers and storing toilet paper for the next 10 years if you have not heard that story that I shared in the past when this was something that was discussed. But we had a question about, and I think it's just worth briefly mentioning the, oh, this is interesting, actually. Alexis writes, thanks so much for the info today. Literally just yesterday, I was thinking of starting up sit-ups again, but can't find a good spot. Way too weird. Well, see, this is a synchronicity that we have with our community, Jared. We speak directly to their needs. I also saw that Poseidon had referred to me as like the old Greek statues. I can't thank you enough, my good brother. Folks, if you don't know who Poseidon is, please look back through the shows that Jared and I have done here on this channel. You will find his links there. We've had him on the show, and you can head on over, and he is a real beloved member of our community. So thank you for being here, for the kind words, Poseidon. We had the question about the alt-right label. And so I will just briefly say the person who articulated it, I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me. Oh, maybe it's here. Vampire School.
Yeah, I spoke to this in the chat. Already. So they already heard my.
What was your take on that?
Well, briefly, because it's the chat, so you only write a couple sentences. Right. We never use that label. I'm kind of ambivalent on it. played its part. I think it kind of had a cycle, and some people still use it as a catch-all or as a shorthand, which I certainly understand. It still does mean slightly different things to different people. I think Jason was very astute in that when we were on Mark's show, and Jason hosted it for a time in last spring of 2018, there was a little disclaimer that he had added and Mark's had used since then that said the alt-right does have different, there are different ideas within that umbrella term, but white well-being is a shared value. And that was a very good way to put it. It's true. And that was a healthy, positive way to put it. But yeah, on the label itself, we've never used it. I myself, as I said, ambivalent. I wasn't against it, but I didn't feel compelled to use it. I didn't write on my website, "Oh, I'm in the alt-right" or something like that. It's had its course, and if people still use it as a quick shorthand, I'm okay with that. If we're associated with that term, I understand why, but it's not really something I honestly put too much time or thought into, to tell you the truth.
I think that's well said, and thank you for saying that about, yeah, when we started hosting this week on the alt-right over here on my channel, I wanted to make clear, because there's so much misunderstanding about this term alt-right. It was and is still a fad. And like a fad, it can come back. It has a certain aesthetic to it. It has a certain irreverence, maybe even, I'll just say irreverence of feeling when it comes to the alt-right. It means insulting the regime with memes. It means these sorts of things. So it was a fad, just like there are any kinds of fads. And as it was a fad, it waxes and wanes. It also means, as a fad, just like bell bottoms were a fad at one point, that the people who wore bell bottoms had a whole spectrum of opinions. They agreed on bell bottoms, but otherwise they had a giant spectrum of opinions, that some of which were antithetical, and that was and is the alt-right label. There was one thing that people who called themselves alt-right, or who were attracted to the alt-right, one thing that they could agree on, and in its most general sense, is that we supported white well-being. Now, some people supported white well-being in ways, and this is why we added the verbiage to the description, in ways that we disagreed, in ways that we found repugnant. Some people attached to it certain economic structures. Some people attach different economic structures. Others attach different forms of governance, and then the opposite forms of governance over there. So you ask, is it dead? Well, as a fad, it can't really be dead. It can be used. It can be, worn or not worn. As of right now, it's not very fashionable anymore, because it has been associated with so much negative, and it has been conflated by the regime with other terms and other movements, etc., that have previously been demonized. And by that association, it has been demonized, and the people who identify themselves are therefore also demonized. It is a crystal clear tactic that the anti-whites use against us. That is why here in the white positive sphere, where we use the dialectics of going free and the lexicon of going free, we use titles and words and arguments that force and compel the anti-whites to reveal who and what they are by opposing them. Saying alt-right allows, in fact, in my criticism at the very beginning, before all of you had ever heard of alt-right, before any of you had heard of alt-right almost, my criticism was we should not encourage this label, because it's on a spectrum. And as a element on a spectrum, that means it has an opposite. And that opposite is what the regime can use at any time as its Achilles heel to take it down. It didn't really have to use it. Some conservatives came along and used the antithesis to smear those who care about white well-being and who also identified as alt-right. Does anybody know what the opposite is? Of course, the opposite, if nobody knows, they can't type as fast as I can talk, is the alt-left. And so they just would apply alt-left to any group of miscreants wandering the street and setting cars on fire, get some footage of that, and then they say, this is the same thing as those on the alt-right. Doesn't matter that those on the alt-right were, of course, dressed and in clean, pressed shirts, and were the kind of people that you would be very happy to watch your dog while you're away on vacation, or grab your mail for you, kind of people that you could trust. Now, certainly not everybody who went into that environment were good people. That's why we pointed out that the alt-right label was a fad. A lot of people came to it. Some of those people were very honorable, and most of those people were very honorable, great people, people we would be happy to associate with. Some of them are despicable scumbags, and we want nothing to do with them. And that's just the reality of a fad. Same exact thing as wearing bell bottoms. I'm sure you could have found some of the best people wearing those ugly things at some point. But of course you could find...
No, if I'm wearing bell bottoms right now as we speak, I might be.
So some of the most despicable as well. But let me point out that we did have the question from Jonas over here on entropy, which I want to make sure we hit. We have Sifu also asking Emmanuel specifically over here on entropy. Says he can't see the poll answers. The boxes are blank for him. I don't think the poll has expired. I see that somebody has recently added their vote to the poll, saying that they like to lift weights. Folks, if you would like to participate in that poll, we are virtually out of time. It's been an amazing show. We'll certainly have another poll on entropy at the next showing. I hope to be able to get with the folks at Entropy and really streamline this to make it very user-friendly for me in a way that will make it very user-friendly for all of you. And most exciting, and I'm going to get to Jonas's question, and we'll get Jared's thoughts on it too as we wrap up today's show. Very exciting is that I had been talking about taking phone calls as a radio show on Going Free just a couple weeks ago. Many of you were with me during that stream, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. Many of you responded in the affirmative, that you very much wanted that, because I have these conversations with many of you in private. I help you with a personal scenario, personal situation that you have. We work through whatever it is, and we arrive at a conclusion that you're very happy with. And of course, I shared then, wouldn't it be great if we could have these conversations in front of the community? Because there are absolutely going to be people with your problem. There are absolutely going to be people with the problem husband, with the problem wife, problem girlfriend or boyfriend, the child that is disobedient, the in-laws that are problems, the guy at work. You know, all of this that I have heard are going to be the same kind of problems that you all are having. I've even had, and this is so immensely humbling, several times people reach out to me from the side of the bed of the dying relative, and they reach out to me in that moment of weakness and in search of strength and search of meaning. And I have in every case been there for them, and I will always be there for you all. Wouldn't it be great if we could have a system set up so that you all could call in and we could specifically speak to your issues and help everyone else in the community? That would be fabulous. I looked around, I asked questions to see if I could find somebody that could help me realize something like that. I had a couple leads, still trying to run those down as I'm a very busy person. But just yesterday, we were on PWR, and right out of Rachel's mouth, one of the creators of this platform, Entropy, she said, we're looking into being able to take calls during the show. And my face lit up, apparently. People noticed it. And I mentioned, and I still mention this to Emmanuel, what would be great is not only do we need to be able to take calls to facilitate this process, but if at all possible, we would really like to have a delay so that when they call in, I mean, the folks in the chat, if I say we're taking a call and there's going to be a a 5-second wait before you hear me again and you hear the person on the line, because we've built into this delay. If that's possible, that would be optimal, simply because in the white positive sphere, we're going to have people call up. They're going to present themselves as utterly legitimate, deserving cases of having their issues addressed. And then they're going to get on the call and they're going to scream to do something awful to some child of some non-white group. And then they're going to hang up, so that that message then, that verbiage then goes out over the internet, recorded on the internet, so that then all of their fellow anti-whites, writing all of these at the Huffing Compost rag and at the Angry White Men rag and all these different places, they can then say, good God, look at the kind of people that are involved in this cause for white well-being. Look at the kind of things they say. So we have to be able to prevent the anti-whites from doing that. I know it's another hurdle, but I hope that we can cross that hurdle and make that a reality. So Jared, last question here. Jonas shared with me a CNN article about the Dalai Lama, and he said recently that Trump lacks moral principles, and of course recently the Dalai Lama suggested that the immigrants, the invaders, the desecrators from other parts of the world who alter and sully our creation, Western civilization, that they should, most of them, return home. And he also made recently some remarks about if there is going to be a Dalai Lama that is a female, that hopefully, I think he said something when I scanned the article, and she doesn't look too bad, because then people won't want to look at her. One thing that just struck me as I looked at that is that when I heard people in our white positive sphere talk about the Dalai Lama and what he said, they took it as a positive, that he was standing up for us, standing up for nationalism. And this is typical of white people. And it is something that in our sphere, we're not going to fall for anymore. Now, I liked the show Leave It to Beaver, the black and white show Leave It to Beaver. It was wholesome. I liked some of these other shows from back in the day that were wholesome, and they ran the reruns for. But ladies and gentlemen, those shows ultimately gelded our people. They turned us into people that said, when something horrible went wrong, they turned us into people that said, oh, shucks. We can't be that people. Don't look at some leader, some non-white leader of some other group or some religion or something, and think for a moment he gives a damn about you. You are projecting who you are into them. And we don't do that here. We don't project ourselves like the rest of the vagues out there in the world, the rest of the white vagues who have no idea what's going on, who are projecting themselves into the minds of every thug on every street corner and every new rapist or doctor, I should say, crossing the border illegally. We don't do that here. We don't project ourselves into people. And I realized as I scanned this, what this guy doesn't actually like, what they fear, and what he's thinking about Europe is his own safety. And that is that he's worried that Europe will become Islamic. And if Europe becomes Islamic, it is an existential threat to him and everything that he holds dear. That is who he's thinking about, not our people. He doesn't give a damn. There is no evidence that he gives a damn about us. And it is a fool that would think otherwise. Stop looking elsewhere for our salvation. Stop thinking that someone else is going to come through for us. The only people that are going to help us are ourselves. The only strength is going to come from inside your heart. The only intelligence is going to come from inside your head. No one else is going to give us any help, any assistance whatsoever. And you know what? The moment that they do, the moment that these other groups show up and say, well, we applaud what you're doing and we're here to help, that'll be the moment that we won't need their help anymore, because we will have recaptured our destiny and they are merely trying to placate us so that we don't look on them with eyes of revenge for the things that have happened to us. Know that. Don't look again to anyone outside of our community. Jared George has said it rightly before in the past. It is down to us and no one else. Jared, I will pass it to you, and we'll get your final thoughts, any thoughts you might have on this, what you're working on next, what you're doing next, and we will then wrap up the show. It's been a great show. I don't know if we had any moderators with us today. I did a little bit. Jared did a little bit, I think. But I thank you all for being here. I thank everybody for super chatting. Absolutely. Everybody who posed questions. And ladies and gentlemen, I want some before and after photos. If you are a modest person and you're willing to take a photograph of your belly and you're going to use the tips that we have given you here today, and in 2-3 weeks, a month, send us an after photo. We would like to see some great results. We will happily tweet and share those with our community. And who will it be? What name will it be that we'll be sharing? Jared, I pass it over to you.
All right. I'm not going to add anything to what you said. I'd seen Dalai Lama had made comments months ago. I guess he's made them again, but I haven't been up on it, so I'm not going to add anything to that now. I'm going to start focusing on one thing a week, one of my platforms a week to highlight. So obviously, in the wake of my YouTube original channel being deleted, I point you in the direction of my BitChute. And that is, I'm still the Great Order on BitChute, so you can go find me there. I do appreciate if you subscribe to Jared George on YouTube as well. I mean, it's there, so we're going to use it. I've spoken about this before, but I have a live stream on it, the band live stream. I did this big panel with a lot of our friends. And now that I have all the parts, I've broken it down into half-hour chunks, a little more watchable because it was 3 hours long in its entirety. Those will all be on BitChute, and I'll take the old one off of YouTube unless something that I can't see now occurs to me, but I don't see any reason to keep it on YouTube. So please do go check out my BitChute. In general, I will always mention thegreatorder.com. If you remember one thing, that's where all of my work goes through. As we were speaking about in the beginning of this very show tonight, if you weren't here at the beginning, I have turned over a new leaf, and I've started doing new kind of content that you haven't seen before. And that would be in the form of comedic skits. This is more of a culture jamming kind of thing, pushing the hypocrisy of the regime back in its face, but doing so in a creative way, having fun, doing it through humor. We're always told that we're stodgy, we're not creative, we're stuck in the past. Nothing could be further from the truth. Let's show them that we have creative, smart people on our side. I wrote this script. I did it with Philosophicat, our friend, and there will be more things like it. So please do go check that out on either of those video channels. I do recommend BitChute. And again, if you don't know where something is, I archive everything I do on my website, so thegreatorder.com. And I also will again highlight something I mentioned a little while ago in the show, and I was sharing in the chat. And when Jason does his outro, I will share the links again. But we have a different kind of tap episode next week, one that you may want to do a little preparation for. And that is because we are speaking with a woman who has done an incredible video series. She's still in the process of making more parts. But we're going to be focusing on the first 3 parts. Part 3 is broken into 2 videos. So it's actually 4 videos. You can watch all or some of them on how Lord of the Rings is a meta myth and is desperately needed for our times. She has a deep background in psychology, in archetypes, in Jung. So we are going to be attacking this from a very many different angles. It's going to be a feast intellectually and spiritually. And we're just focusing on those first 3 parts. So she's going to be back in the future to do more. And if you missed me having said this earlier, you do not have to be a Lord of the Rings expert to appreciate this. In fact, Jason and I are not. Obviously, we watched her videos and we're making a lot of notes and coming up with questions and themes. But you do not have to be a Lord of the Rings expert. If you're interested in what we talk about here week in and week out and you enjoy the after party, this is going to be some prime after party material. And that's going to be on Wednesday. Thursday's a holiday in the United States. It's Independence Day. It's July 4th. So we try to time it nicely. It's Wednesday, 5 Eastern. So people in the US and the East Coast at least will be getting out of work. It won't be too late in the UK, 10, Central Europe, 11. And it's the day before July 4th for the Americans, so it might be a good time. A lot of people might have off. So you might even be Pacific time. It might be 2 o'clock in the afternoon, but you might have off. Sometimes people are able to take off the day before July 4th as well. So spread the word. Watch some of those videos if you can. They are professionally made. These are not just little YouTube videos that she put together. She had a professional videographer and editor do this with her. And she, again, has years of experience in psychology and has been writing this script and thinking about this and testing it for years. And the work shows it is going to be a deep exploration of the myths, of the symbols, of the kinds of thinking that we need to get back in touch with, because we very much are living a myth right now. We are living a grand, possibly tragic event. We are living Lord of the Rings right now, and she's going to show us why and how that is, and we're going to dig deeply into it. So I'll spread the link in the chat. Please do spread the word. Go check out her website, read a little about it, and then watch those first 3 parts embedded if you want to have a little more prep for the show. But whether or not you're able to watch those vids, whether or not you're a Lord of the Rings junkie, please do join us on Wednesday the 3rd here. It's going to be a tremendous episode of the After Party. And with that, I turn it over to Jason to take us out for today. Thank you all.
Thank you, good sir. Indeed, that is going to be a magnificent, spiritual, very intriguing episode. Definitely don't miss that one. Coming up right around our Independence Day here in the United States. So it has been a fantastic show. I want to spotlight a few people. I saw Vampire Squid, and I saw Jake, a solitary candle. I saw Lisa Zoller. I saw in the chat as well. I saw that... I was referring to it as Jonas responding to Vampire Squid, saying that he's Czech. If he's Czech, then his name, I'm going to guess, is pronounced Jornash. I don't know. You tell me if that's close. Jornash. Close or not. But anyhow, it's been a fantastic show today. We've loved sharing this information with you, and we continue to move forward. We will see you all next time, of course. During the next show, we are going to be talking about Lord of the Rings, as Jared mentioned. And if you have not subscribed to Jared's new channel, please do so. Head on over there. It's at Jared George on YouTube. And make sure, as we started off this show today, to go and watch Jared's new skit about the last blonde. It is extremely entertaining. You'll never look at him the way you have in the past. So thank you all for being here. Thank you all for super chatting and contributing with questions and comments. And we look forward to seeing you all again next time.